Welcome to Aligned Visible Hire, the masterclass for job seekers looking to get six-figure jobs with more ease and more speed, even in this tough economy. So, I want to know how many of you, I recognize a lot of you, and some of you are new to me. So, tell me in the comments, are you new to me? Or maybe put joy in the comments if we've known each other for a while. New or joy? I want to get a feel for who is here live today. We've got Joy, yes. Cynthia says, you know me. Yes, I do know you, Cynthia. By the way, I want to update on the business. Jamie's new, Vicky, Joy, Greg, new. I love it. Linda is new, Dorothy, Chris, Joy, but have been active for some years. So you're coming back, getting back engaged. I love it. More joys and new. Okay, so for those of you who might not know me, or who maybe have forgotten, I know this online space, there are a lot of people out there, so I don't expect you to remember everything, but I'm Kristen Zabo. I'm an executive coach and a job search coach. I've been doing this work for over 10 years now. I was thinking about that. I started career coaching actually in my last career change, which was 2014. So it's been over a decade. How crazy is that? Before I launched my coaching practice full time, I had over 15 years in traditional corporate roles. I started in investment banking. Then I went into financial consulting. I did that for about 9 years. And then I made a big career change from finance into strategy and marketing. And so it was that career change that, I thought I was making a career change from corporate into consulting, but it was actually also the start of my coaching because that's when people came to me and they started asking, wait, how did you do this? You had no experience. And can you show me? And wait, you got a promotion at the same time. What? Help. And so that was the beginning of my coaching work, which is, really what has been on my heart and what I love to do. I've always been involved in some sort of mentorship. I mean, since the beginning, even when I was in school, I would mentor younger students. So. Anyway, like I said, I've been coaching for over 10 years. I really focus on high achieving professionals. I've helped my clients to double their income, step into dream roles, and really, find jobs where they feel seen, respected, valued, and are at the highest level of their careers. And my first client was me. I've done this myself multiple times. When I first changed from investment banking to consulting to strategy and marketing. And then, of course, it's a career change, launching your own business. I'm also the best-selling author of Job Joy, Your Guide to Success, Meaning, and Happiness in Your Career. And my work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the Huffington Post, Real Simple, Yahoo. I mean, all Business Insider, all the big ones. And so, what I want you to know, I want to start off this class with really letting you know that two things can be true. Number one, we know the market is tough. Right? I mean, like that is, we know that. We see the news. If you're in job search mode, you've experienced that now. And I want to be clear, even now, people are landing aligned, high-paying roles they love. In literally just the past few weeks, I've had at least 5 clients land roles across all different industries. In my Find Your Job Joy program, we have an attorney who just landed a role, which, by the way, they created this role for her. Okay. I've got another client in the recruiting space. She's starting a new job on Monday. A client, Jenny, she is doing a director of internal communications role. She starts on Monday. I have another client who's 2 weeks into her new job, and she went back to consulting after spending some time in industry. She negotiated in the mid 200s. I have yet another client who's 2 weeks in, and she's in the product slash consulting slash program management industry. And so all of this to say these are different people at different levels in their career, but they're landing jobs now. And so I know it can be very easy to be, discouraged, and we're seeing all this bad news and things are tough. But when you have the right strategy and you're consistent and persistent, and when you are aligned, right? And like we're talking about today, when you're aligned and when you're visible and you keep showing up for yourself, you can't help but be successful. Okay. So I just want to tell you this to inspire you and to show what is possible. all those wins that I just shared, they don't get the clicks, on the internet when somebody is writing an article, but that's happening too. Okay. Also, this is not your average, optimize your resume class. We're going to talk about what actually works in this market, with all the AI generated resumes and LinkedIn profiles, with the months long interview process that is the reality for so many jobs, so many companies, and with the, endless high competition. So today, what we're going to cover, number one, we're going to talk a little bit about the current market, why job search tactics that might have worked in the past are not working now. We're going to talk about how to align yourself to the right roles. And what does that even mean? Right? Align is a nice word, but what does that even mean? So we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about how to be visible, how to stand out, how to even get pursued yourself. That is one of the best feelings. On our Job Joy call yesterday, we were talking, one of my clients was talking about how they were coming after her, and it was like, what a nice feeling to be pursued, right? In the job search. Wouldn't you guys like that? Yes? That's what it's like, right? To be a magnet and to show up unapologetically. I'm going to pack in as much as possible. I'm going to try to get this in 60 minutes. Sometimes we go over. I can't help myself. But if you have to leave a little early or you can't go to the very end, that's okay. I will be sending out a replay. But I do want to invite you to do your best to stay, as long as possible. For those who do want to go deeper, who want, the personalized feedback, who want the accountability, who want the ongoing support throughout the whole job search, I will take about 5 minutes, not too long, but about 5 minutes at the end to share about how we can work together. And then we'll have some time for some open Q&A. Okay. So, like I said, this is a high value training. This is not a pitch fest like a lot of these free classes that you sign up for. So, with that said, I really invite you to be present, to eliminate distractions. I know we're all multitaskers. We can't even watch TV without being on our phone, right? But I wanted you to give yourself the gift of this time. You don't know what one tip, what comment, what question is going to make the biggest difference in your search. Take notes. Participate when I ask questions. All of that is going to help you to really remember everything we talk about here, because there's no point in coming to these classes, right, if something doesn't change after. So if you are on board, type yes in the comments. Okay, we got some yeses. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so good. So let's talk about the current market and why what used to work might not be working anymore. First of all, AI has raised the bar, right? Now everybody can have a chat GPT. Everybody can have their resume optimized for keywords. Anyone can have AI write their about section, write their LinkedIn profile. And so what this is meaning is that, first of all, everyone looks good on paper, right? Second, everyone kind of looks the same for the same jobs, right? And so this makes it even more important for you to stand out and for you to figure out what are the things that make you different, that make you special, your combination of experience and passions and strengths and your perspective. It's always been important to stand out. If you've spent any time with me, I've always preached that, but especially now because we're all starting at a higher level. Having an optimized resume and an optimized LinkedIn profile, that doesn't make you special or make you stand out anymore. That is table stakes. Okay. So it's even more important that we figure out what is your secret sauce, what differentiates you, and then you own that versus trying to look like everyone else. Okay. Second, I'm seeing that hiring processes are taking longer. They're longer, they're messier. You think you've made it to the end, and then they're like, by the way, let's add in another interview, right? Anybody have that feeling, that experience, right? It's the worst. And it's for a lot of reasons. There's less trust on both sides. Candidates don't trust employers. Employers don't trust candidates. There's more competition with people who are going for remote roles. They really are making you jump through more hoops and really prove that you're able to do something, not just talk about it. Yes, Keith says it's never ending. Absolutely, right? And the other thing that I'm seeing is because of this, right? Job seekers are doing all the right things based on what used to work before, but it's not working, right? We need more to stand out. And so this is where alignment, visibility, and identity come into play. This is what we're going to talk about today, but these are the hidden levers. These are the things you cannot outsource to ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is not going to make you aligned. It's not going to get you visible. It's not going to have you own your strengths. It cannot change your identity so you show up as the person who, of course, is going to be successful in this role. Okay. Most people are playing on the surface level, right? The resume, the LinkedIn. Again, these are important. I have trainings on them in my job search program. So I'm not saying they're not important, but that's not enough anymore. And when we just play on the surface, when we don't do the deeper things, some of this is unseen, right? The identity work, the alignment work, that's not something that we can necessarily put on a worksheet, but it's just as, if not more important, right? We're animals. We can sense when somebody walks in the room, right, and they're saying the right words, but they're not embodying it. They don't even trust themselves. Right? Or they don't even believe they can do it. And so you need to get to a place of alignment so that the words are matching your energy, so that the things you're doing are backed by, an identity that is a match for the roles you want. I wrote down this quote. I want to tell you guys this, and I might repeat it later. But you need to embody and grow into the version of yourself that is actually ready to reach your goals that you say you want. Many times we say we want these things, but we're not acting like it, right? We don't even believe it's possible. Also, you cannot outperform your self-image, right? And this is the self-image, not like the thing we say out loud, but we don't really believe it. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? You cannot outperform your self-image. Robin says yes. Yes, okay. And another way to put this, you cannot accomplish something if you think it's more than what is possible for you. That's what I mean when I talk about, some of you might have gone to my job search energetics class a couple months ago, but when I talk about identity and I talk about energetics, that's what I mean, right? You can't manifest something that you don't believe is possible for you, right? You can't hit a goal if you don't think, right, that that you have the capability for it, right? And Chris says yes. Shrutika says, of course. Leslie, a former manager, once told me to stop putting roadblocks in my own way. We do this all the time. And guys, it's really human, right? This is nothing to feel bad about. But the good news is, as soon as you are aware of it, right, you can do the work to say, okay, is this true? You can do the inner work so that you are aligning to the actions you're taking. You can have two candidates who have the exact same experience, who are saying the exact same thing, but one lands differently than the other based on how they show up. So it's not just what you do, it's the energy behind it, right? Just like it's not just the words someone says, but it's the tone behind it, right? And so this shift happens, right? You become magnetic. The job search even becomes more fun as much as is possible when you're not only doing the traditional things, you still need to do those, right? But when you're also aligning who you are and how you show up with what you want. Okay. So we need to be masterful at the tactics and the strategies, absolutely. But your energy and your identity have to match. So let's talk about alignment. So with alignment, right? If you've come to my classes before, part of this is clarity. I've talked about it that way. Part of it is embodiment, right? And what I mean by embodiment is it's not just I'm learning something and I'm saying something intellectually, right? But I'm embodying it. I believe it. I feel it, right? Do you guys get what I'm saying by embody? That's kind of a word we don't talk about in corporate a lot, right? But you can tell, right? When, I don't know, maybe you are repeating affirmations, right? And you can say the affirmations, you've read the book, you got the Louise Hay, affirmation to say, but if in your bones you don't believe it, right? If you say, I am successful, I am powerful, but it's like you have this sinking feeling, right? That means the words, the action is not matching the embodiment, right? And so we need to have both. And so when it comes to clarity around the roles you're going after, I want to make sure it's a role that is actually aligned with who you are and the life you want. So you'd be surprised how many people tell me they've been job searching for months, and I ask them what they're looking for. And they can't answer the question, or they rattle off a bunch of different options. The job search hasn't begun. I'm sorry, guys. You have to be clear on what is the role you want, and even more important, why do you want this role? Right? What I'm seeing a lot right now because of the difficult market, people are going after roles that they don't actually want because they're playing it safe or they believe it will be easier to get a job that I'm overqualified for. But here's the thing. The job market's tough either way, so you might as well go for the job you want, number one. Number two, when you are pursuing a role that deep down you don't actually want, it's going to be a lot harder to get it, even if you're taking all the right steps, because you have this inner resistance, right? This is the energy. You have this inner resistance, which is going to stop you at every place, right? And people will feel, even if they're not articulate to say, yeah, I'm not sure, they didn't feel as much into it, right? It will be felt, and that's how your competition will beat you out. So you want to be really clear. What is the role I'm going after? Am I going after it because it is aligned with who I am and the life I want, or am I going after it out of fear or scarcity? Right? You also want to think about how does this fit into the life I want? So many people, right, after working remote for a long time, the idea of going into an office 5 days a week, it's a non-starter, right? And I have other clients who, after being home for so long, they're like, Kristen, I'm dying here. I need some social interaction. And they don't want to be at home. So it doesn't matter, right, which side it is, but you have to really think about what is true to my nature. Am I honoring how I actually operate, what I want? And am I downplaying or am I actually owning my skills and where I can add the most value? Let's see. Diane says the role you don't want and get is also harder to keep. Yeah, you can struggle and maybe you get the job, but it's also going to be harder to keep. That's absolutely right. Cynthia says I did that and only lasted a year, right? So you guys have the evidence, right? Looking back, you can see how this makes sense. Yet our ego plays these tricks on us that what we really want is going to be harder to get, but it's actually the opposite, right? Everything comes into play when we align our goals with who we actually are and what we actually want. It makes everything easier. It even makes the job search process less tedious. Right? Things are hard when we're working towards something we don't even want, right? When we don't have that excitement, right? When we know that we're undercutting ourselves, right? When we know that we're taking what we really want and we're convincing ourselves, trying to fool ourselves that we should just be happy with whatever, okay? So that is kind of the clarity piece. And then I want you to think about, and we talk about this when we're crafting a story and we're crafting your personal brand. I spend a lot of time on this with my clients. But even before we craft the story for the outward facing piece, I want you to think about why are you interested in this, right? How does this play to your strengths? Is this you acting from a place of self-worth? Right? Um, how does this light you up, right? Can you think of examples where you go back into your work? What was the exciting stuff? So why is this important to you? And then once we have that level of clarity, we go into the identity and the energy, right? And this is really important. This is newer content, right? If you've never been here or you haven't taken a class in a while, but I want you to ask yourself in your job search, are you acting like the professional who already has it? Are you acting from a place of course, success is inevitable, right? Are you acting like the professional who deserves to be in the room? By the way, if you're in the room, you deserve to be there, okay? Are you, when you look at how you're showing up in comparison to the version of you who already has the job, I want you to look at where are the gaps. Okay. And we're doing this not from a place of judgment, from a place of just like unconditional loving witness. Where am I acting like I'm going to fail at this anyway? Right. And I'll just apply to a bunch of jobs, but I know I'm not going to get them. Right. The version of you who knows without a doubt you're going to land that job, they're going to be a little more direct and they're going to reach out to the person and say, hey, I saw this job. I saw you posted it. I'm really excited about it because of ABC. Would love to connect. That person not only will have that direct, scary reach out, but after they send it, they're also unattached to it if they get a response because they're moving on to a bunch of other opportunities that are just as excited. Do you see that energy when you are acting as a person who is the prize? Right? And I say this in a humble way. Anybody who's in my class, you're likely not a narcissist, okay? You likely need to own your strengths more, own your value more, and act like the professional who is the prize, who they would be lucky to have you. I have a client who she just started a job maybe like 3, 4 weeks ago. She works for a nonprofit, and we were talking on the phone yesterday, and she was telling me she secured this deal. They're going to have these data people come in and they're volunteering and they're paying for the salaries of these people who are going to get the data so this nonprofit can do better. I'm not doing it justice. The point is, this is well over $1 million in funding she already got. She and I was laughing with her. I said, "You can stop working now. You've already paid for your salary multiple times over." Right? That is an example, right, of owning your value, seeing your value unapologetically. And that doesn't mean, right, that you are bragging, right? We are taught don't talk about the good stuff, but the thing is it's just owning it. It's just facts, right? And people can feel that again, whether you're talking about it or not. So I want you to think about in your job search, if you knew success was inevitable, what would you do? How would you act? If you already had the job, right? I work with a lot of people who are moving into C-suite. And guess what for hardest time to get a C-suite role, whether it's CFO or CEO, I'm working with a chief risk officer, the hardest time is the first time, right? Because the best time to get a CFO role is when you already have been a CFO. So what do they have to do? They have to act as if, right? CIO, Chris, is that you? Are you Chief Information Officer? Cynthia says, I used to chase titles, but it's better to enjoy the day-to-day tasks. Yes, right. Are you going to enjoy what you're actually doing day to day? Stephen, the mismatch occurs sometimes. It's isn't always our fault. Not, there's no fault here, guys. Right? Once you know this, you get to see, right? And you get to align. Sometimes the role described in the rec is not the role, and that's absolutely true, right? And there are things you can do in the interview process to try to eliminate that as much as possible. Let's see, Rob, I would be super excited. Imagine being in the C-suite. Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely a possibility. I work with multiple clients who are going for that for sure. And it's scary for them too. Even if that's been the path, okay? So I want you to trust that what is on your heart, right? What you are being called to do, all your experience that has led to this, even all the bad experiences, it has given you the contrast so you can come into even more clarity about what is right for you. Do you guys see that? And so, another question, this could be a question, if I were you, I would write it down and I would think about it in your quiet time, is if you have been in the job search for a while and if you feel like you've been doing all the right things, I want you to ask yourself and be really ruthlessly honest with yourself. How am I benefiting from not getting the job? You would be surprised. I will work with people and like maybe they'll get an offer really soon or they're getting really close to the offer and they get nervous and they're like, I wanted a job, but not this fast. Right? It happens too fast. Or they're getting really close and then they're like, and when they admit to themselves, I'm worried about losing my freedom, right? I'm worried about losing the flexibility, right? So how am I benefiting from not getting what I want? And I want you to ask this question because then you're shining a light on the unconscious things that might be holding you back. And on an unconscious level, not only do they affect the energy behind the words you say and the things you do, but it also affects what you do. It also affects what you're inspired to do, right? Another way to ask this question is what bad thing happens if I get what I want, right? And let's use a non-job example, right? So many people want love, right? I want to find the love of my life. What bad thing happens if I get what I want? Well, I can tell you, as a single woman in midlife, a very big fear for a lot of us is, oh my goodness, I can't have a man in my space. Everything's clean and I do things my way and I can have girl dinner at night, right? And so we have these competing things. On one hand, yes, we're ready for love, we want it. And on the other hand, there are these unconscious things, these unconscious ways that we're holding ourselves back without even realizing it because there's a part of us that doesn't want it or is afraid of wanting it. And how do we overcome that? First of all, we shine a light on it. We see, is that really true? And then we get to use that information, we get to use those fears and gaps to get even more clear and more aligned on what we actually want. Right? So personal example, back to, the love example. I know that, a fear, right? After a couple of years, I got out of a really long-term relationship. And a fear I have about a new relationship is whenever I am in one, I tend to start, my healthy habits go to waste. I'm going to bed later, I'm waking up later, I'm not eating as much, having more wine because it's a social thing. And so rather than say, well, I don't actually want love, then I get to use that information, those fears that right now might be repelling a partner, and I get to say, okay, this is information to get even more clear about what aligned love is for me. And I need a partner who also values his health, who also is on a similar clock. So we're going to bed at similar times and I don't feel like I'm sacrificing, right? Who doesn't want to drink every night with dinner, right? And so do you see how if we're willing to look at the hard stuff, if we're willing to be honest with ourselves, it can actually be information. Sometimes, yes, we need to heal something. Sometimes there's deeper inner work to do, but sometimes it's just refining and getting more clear on what we want and what we need. Okay? Is this resonating? Is this making sense, guys? Have you ever held yourself back unconsciously? Let's see. Steven says yes. Brenda says yes. Okay. It can be hard. Like this is, some people think this is kind of woo-woo stuff, but this is, very basic psychology. I've been obsessed with psychology since I was a kid. In my high school yearbook, they said, "What do you want to go to college for?" And I said psychology because I want to understand why people do what they do. So, multiple degrees later, I'm still studying psychology and I still don't always understand why we do what we do. But one of the things, right, is we're protecting ourselves, right? And so that's where it gets in the way in job search. Brian, whether most admit it or not, yes, most do or have. Yeah, and sometimes it's not a matter of admitting it. Sometimes we're not aware. That's the definition of unconscious, right? And so that's why we're doing this work. That's why we're here. And I appreciate you guys being open to it. Even if you're sitting there saying, this isn't me, I hope that this plants the seed. And I'll give you another example. I have a client who um, he's got a lot of experience in Rev Ops work, and he's in the job search. He's looking at roles, and he's been going after these roles that are an easy fit, which are the Rev Ops roles and some consulting roles, etc. And he came to me one day and he's like, Kristen, I don't want to do Rev Ops. This sounds miserable. I don't care that this is what I'm qualified to do. He really wants to do chief of staff work. And when he admitted that to himself, which was scary, right? Because admitting that to yourself means number one, you might have to pivot. Number two, it might be harder. Can I handle this? Right? It's scary to admit that. But once he admitted that and he started saying no to the roles that weren't aligned with who he was and what he wanted to do, literally hours later, he got a couple calls for a couple new opportunities. Does it always happen that fast? No. But my point is, when you say no to things that are not a fit, and when you declare and when you stand for yourself, it makes space for other opportunities to come in. Okay. And so your question that I want you to leave with for this section on alignment is, am I applying to roles and showing up in my search from a place of fear or scarcity or alignment? Am I applying to roles and showing up in my job search from a place of growth or settling? Okay, let's see. Rob says, I've held myself back, not alone. Chris, my wife and I have gotten on nearly opposite schedules, although she has horrible insomnia that is driving it. Some people work really well on opposite schedules. And I will say with my ex, I told myself we worked well on opposite schedules. But, now at this season of life, I think it's easier for me to stay healthy if I'm with someone who also, is on a similar schedule. Let's see, Rebecca, this totally resonates. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. And a lot of what we talk about today, right? Like I said, this is not a traditional job search class. A lot of what we talk about today, we're planting seeds if any of it is new, and then it's going to come back when you're ready to hear it or you're in a new place. Okay. So let's go into visibility. So, what we just talked about, alignment, if you've watched my classes before, that would be kind of the clarity section of the three-step process, right? Visibility is campaign and connection. So, I approach your job search like a marketing campaign, right? And connection is the networking piece. So, when it comes to visibility, right? You can be the perfect candidate. You can, have the perfect LinkedIn profile, the perfect resume, right? You can be the one who would be the best fit culture-wise, right? You can have all the proof points. But if you're not in front of the right people, none of that matters, right? And this is why when you guys get those rejection letters and they upset you, when they come an hour or 24 hours or 48 hours later, a human didn't reject you. It was literally a robot. Okay. And this is why we need to get you in front of the right people and not rely, right, on the ATS system. Okay. So, yes, again, tactical is important. I cover that. We talk about that in, my work with clients. You need to have an aligned resume. You need to have a dialed in LinkedIn profile. I want you posting, right? I want you showing up as a leader in your field. I want you having credibility. I want you to stay top of mind. I want your voice to be heard. You need to be networking online and in person, right? All of that is important. And you need to continually refine how you're showing up, right? Refine your visibility in response to the market. And by that, I mean in response to the conversations you're having, the feedback you're getting, whether it's direct or indirect. The mistake that I see is that many people will update their profile, right? They'll update their resume, they set it and forget it. They don't engage, they don't play to the algorithm. Guys, LinkedIn, it's social media. They reward people who play to the algorithm. What I mean by this is when you're updating your profile, when you're commenting on posts, when you're posting, right? When you're applying to jobs, when you're replying to, and you're networking, that makes LinkedIn say, oh, this is someone who is active here. I'm going to put them higher, right, in the recruiter searches. Right? The more people you're connected to, again, the higher you're going to be in searches, the more likely you're going to be found. Okay. I have a client that I'm thinking of. Her name is Dee. Her testimonial is on the website. She 19 times her investment in Find Your Job Joy, by the way. Yes, you heard that right. Cynthia, you might know Dee. I forget if you guys, yes. She got approached for a job. She was pursued via a comment on a LinkedIn post. It wasn't even her post. She commented. They saw her little picture and her headline and they go, oh, I think she might be good. They clicked on her profile and said, hey, would you be interested in this job? This is what I mean, the magic of showing up as your true self. You have the tactics, you have the strategies, right? But you become magnetic, okay? So we just talked about the tactics. All of that is important. All of that, I work with my clients to really refine that process. But in addition, right, you need the energy and the identity to match. This is what makes you magnetic. This is what makes you stand out, even against someone who's saying the same words, right? You embodying the version of you who has the job, it actually builds confidence in others. Are you getting what I'm saying? When you show up as the person who already has the job, not only do you build confidence in yourself, you build confidence in others. That's energy. And think about in your life where you might notice that. Think about if somebody is trying to convince you of something, right? If you feel their confidence, it almost calms your nervous system, right? This is like the stuff that is harder to teach because it's not like a five-step thing to update your resume. But this is the embodiment that makes you stand out. And by the way, everything we're talking about here, it doesn't just help you land the job, it helps you be successful in the job. It helps you in every other part of life. When you show up and you own your strengths and you own who you are without apology, you are going to push away the things that are not for you. I want you to push away those things because those are not the things that you're going to be the most successful and the most happy at. You guys picking up what I'm putting down? You with me? Okay, good. Can you tell I'm excited about this stuff? It's so interesting to teach because I know right now some of you might be taking it in at an intellectual level, But when it like gets in your cells and you embody it, it's like you lock in. It's like, oh, I get it. And so this many times is the first step. And then you start acting in that way. You say, if I knew I was going to get the job, what would I do in this situation? If I knew without a doubt that success was inevitable, how would I see this rejection? It changes your mindset, it changes your energy, it changes your action, right? It's slowly changing into your identity until all of a sudden you don't have to think about what would successful me do. You already are her. Okay. Stephen says loud and clear. Rob, be authentic, confident, believe in yourself. Yes, but not just as an affirmation, right? This is, we see all this stuff about self-care. True self-care is not manicures and massages. True self-care is having your own back. True self-care is showing up for yourself even when it's tough. True self-care is believing in yourself, right? Okay, so you're going to have dialed in assets. You're building relationships when you're coming from this place of alignment. No apology with your visibility. I promise you, no one's going to get tired of how many times you post on LinkedIn or when you follow up. Nobody's thinking about you that much, right? You're following up without attachment. When somebody says to me, Kristen, it's been a week, I haven't heard back, I'm really stressed out, should I reach out? I say yes, but don't reach out when you're in the energy of, oh my God, I'm never going to get a job and this is the I'm holding on this and if this doesn't work out, that can be felt. Even the same words. Wait till you're a place of, I'm really excited about this job, right? If this doesn't work out, I know something else is coming. Okay? So that's what I mean when I say following up without attachment. You're interested, you're proactive, but you know without a shadow of a doubt, if not this, something better, right? And think about all the trials and tribulations through life. I bet you can think back and somehow it always worked out, even when you thought it wouldn't. I would love for you. That's another great little homework assignment. Think about those times, right? And use that as comfort. Okay. You have this humble, I am the prize energy. You are sharing your voice, right? What makes you tick? What is your unique perspective? We need to see that. The more that AI is writing the articles and doing all the things, the more important it is for you to stand out with what is unique to you. You're owning your story both online and in person. And a big piece of owning your story includes those potential employer objections. So those things, right? I have a client, she's in finance and government. You know, the layoffs finally came for her. She's like, what am I going to say about this? And I said, before we talk about what you're going to say, right, you need to come to terms with, I didn't do anything wrong. This isn't an indication of my worth, right? And this is actually setting me up to go for something that I would like even more. And when you can get to that place, then it's an easy conversation, right? Yeah, I was had this role, in this organization. Unfortunately, I was part of the federal layoffs, but what I'm really excited about, it's giving me a chance to pursue what I'm really interested in, and I'm so excited that that's led to this conversation about this role. Done, right? And there's no shame, right? But first we have to do that inner work. Okay. Let's see. I have a message, a secret message, a direct message. Showing up embodied calms our nervous systems. Ours are the people we talk to. Both. Both. Have you guys ever talked to someone and they have this nervous energy and all of a sudden you're like, I feel nervous? Do you know what I'm talking about? Especially if you're empathic, but even if you're not, right? We can feel it when someone is nervous or they don't, the words aren't really matching who they are. Some people will call it vibe. The vibe was off, right? Although according to Gen Z, it's no longer cool to say that. But my point, right, is that we feel it. We're animals, right? We can feel that. And so when you show up confidently, right, it does build confidence in whoever you're talking to. So I want you to act like the person who belongs in the role. I want you to act like the person who belongs in the room. Choose like her, think like her, act like her. You're going to come back, you're going to spiral, right? We're humans, nobody is perfect. But then I want you to get yourself out of that and say, hold up, right? How would successful me act, right? And in Find Your Job Joy, we learn to do this in multiple ways. We have the structure, right? You always have the structure and the routine, so you know exactly what you're doing. You have the support, right? All the inner work, job search is transformation. It brings up all your stuff, right? And we slowly expand the comfort zone. If you have never posted on LinkedIn, I'm not going to tell you to post 5 times a week, okay? We slowly expand the comfort zone so that little by little, you're becoming more and more of the most successful version of yourself. And I did this, when I was making that career change in consulting, it was finance. I worked with companies going through bankruptcy. The biggest one, some of you might, people who are my age or older might remember Lehman Brothers. You guys remember that? Yeah, I worked on that case, right? And so I was used to working with troubled companies, Chapter 11s in numbers. And then I said, hey, I want to do strategy and marketing and customer experience for healthy retail companies. Complete 180, right? I had no experience in this. And when I was looking for a job, I went to a big retail conference, which ultimately I met someone who led to the job. But when I went to that conference, guys, and I'm telling you this story because I was stepping into the version of me who already had the job. I went to this National Retail Federation conference. I raised my hand. I volunteered to write an article on like one of the speakers there, right? They needed content. I've always been good at writing. Was I an expert in retail yet? No, but I could be there. I could listen. I had an opinion. That's why I was interested in retail. I was writing articles for retail conferences before I got the retail job. Not only did that help with my personal brand, right, but even the confidence, right? And I'm not saying, I didn't question it or I wasn't nervous, right? But that's what I mean when I say acting as if. If I knew without a doubt I would be successful, would I pause to write an article, right? Would I say, well, why me? And I can't. No, I would write it. Right? And so that's what I mean. And these are little things that it's not even me telling you what to do, but when you're embodying that version, you are inspired to act like them, which gets you closer to your goal, right? Um, and then another thing, right? I had landed this job, and it was in the strategy and innovation group, and I think I told you guys this maybe in an email. I wanted to go to this conference, and my boss didn't believe in conferences. But if you know me, you know I always find a way. And so I was like, oh, I'll tell them I'll speak. It was a strategy conference. Again, I was like 6 months into this new role. They said yes. And so now, before I know it, they're flying me to Chicago. I'm presenting on strategy, and I've been a strategy professional for literally months. Okay. If you believe it, you get trust and confidence from other people, and then you step into that version. Okay. Are these examples helpful? By the way, when you do things like this, it really makes your future self proud. Like I can think back to little me with that spunk, right? And that's nice. I want you to be proud of yourself. I want you to do this for future you. Cynthia, genuine excitement can't be faked. It's so true, right? We feel it. You guys feel it from me. I know you do. Sometimes I'll have people come to my calls and they're like, I'm not even looking for a job. I just wanted some good vibes. Right? Or they'll come to my coaching calls, right? In the program. They'll say, I didn't have a question today, but I just wanted to feel better. Okay, Lori, laid off in April, won an internal award for my work in December. Awesome. That is a perfect example. Chris, I'm not confident enough in public speaking to do it, but I gave you that as an example. You don't have to public speak. That's just an example, right? Of acting like the person who already has the role. Brian, definitely always feel in a better mood after our calls. Well, me too, Brian. I love it, right? Which is another way you know you're in the right job. Okay, let's talk about, I have an updated JobJoy framework. You guys have seen this before. I've done it. We have clarity, campaign, connection, but I've updated it. I normally prefer to talk to you guys because I like to see you. And after all those years in corporate, let's be honest, I'm really tired of presentations, but I thought it would be helpful to see a diagram of the new framework. So I'm going to show that to you guys. You guys down for that? Okay, let's see. Let's do it. Okay, can you see my little PowerPoint? Okay, so we have the new Find Your Job Joy framework. It is still in a circle because every step, right, we continually refine it. So the first step is the vision alignment. So this is what I would have called clarity before, right? This is being ruthless with the clarity on the role, on the work, on the industry, on the culture, on the life you want, and alignment, not just with the what out there, but with the who in here. Who is the version of you who is living this reality, right? Start acting like her or him. Okay. Step two, magnetic positioning, right? So this is what I might have called campaign before. This is your personal brand. This is what sets you apart from the crowd. This is what makes recruiters and hiring managers chase you. This is what turns your issues, the things, the reasons you think somebody might not hire you, into actual assets. When I was changing from consulting to a traditional job, a lot of people told me, and I was worried they wouldn't want to hire a consultant, right? Because consultants, they didn't stick around for a long time. It's a much faster paced situation. And so I had to prove, I had to show through my brand, through my story, why hiring a consultant was actually good for them, right? I had seen so many more industries. I had so much more exposure than someone with my traditional years experience because of the nature of consulting, right? I was able to pull from all different industries to look at strategies and innovations in the new company that I was looking at, okay? This is what positions you as the obvious choice, helps you stand out against everyone else, right, who's using ChatGPT to have an aligned profile, okay? Then step three, this is your strategic job search routine, right? My clients know exactly what to do when they sit down to job search, and it's not scroll LinkedIn and spend hours applying to jobs, right? We want to spend our time on the highest ROI activities. ROI is return on investment. So whether you have 20 minutes or you're full-time job searching, you're doing 3 to 4 hours a day, right? We want to make sure that you're spending time on the things that matter most. Most people spend the majority of their time applying to jobs online, right? Without ever talking to someone. That is the least likely way you're actually going to land the job, right? We've seen stats 60 to 80% of applications are never actually seen by a human being. Okay, which is why it's so important to not rely on that. No more spraying and praying, right? We're not throwing spaghetti at the wall. You spend time on the activities that matter most, and I'm going to use a business phrase here, right? In business, they talk about your pipeline. Right. So if you are, I don't know, you're selling widgets, right? You want to make sure that you always have new companies, new businesses who are going to buy your widgets, right? You are have doing a marketing campaign when you are job searching. So we want to fill your pipeline with lots of potential jobs. So we're not relying on one or two to make it to the finish. One of the top mistakes I see people make is they get further in the job search process and they stop the other job search work because they're thinking one of these will hopefully pan out. But no, the more excited you are about a specific job, the more I want you getting more in your pipeline. That puts you in a place of power. And by the way, it also makes it highly likely that you get multiple offers at the same time. That happens so much with my clients. I literally have a training in Find Your Job Joy about choosing between offers. Okay. That's the problem I want you to have. That's what I want you coming to me complaining about. Okay. What else? Let's see. So in the strategic job search routine, you're not just doing the tactics, but you're also doing the inner work because the more you're out there and you're taking action, it's going to bring up your stuff and you're going to see where the gaps are. So you get to be transformed into the most successful version of you as you're working this process. Okay. And the inner work, that's a lot of what we do with the coaching because I can share it, what it means here, and I can give you examples, but for everyone, it's a little different, right? We all have these things in common, but our specific nuance and flavor of it is different. But that's something that I love to dive into coaching, whether it's on our group calls or even the one-on-one. Okay, step four is we're commanding the room. Okay, this would be kind of your networking version. So our positioning, our job search routine, right? That would be your campaign. Commanding the room is what I would have called connection before. So you are learning to lead the conversations, networking, interview, negotiations, with the energy of someone who belongs in the room. Okay. And then this last piece I've added because so much of this work, I didn't talk about it as much before because I didn't know if people had the appetite to hear it, so to speak. But I've realized my clients, you guys can handle it, right? Anyone in my audience, you're higher level, you want more than just basic job search strategies. So this is the inner work. This is the embodying your successful self. This is the identity. This is the energetics. This is the confidence. This is the worthiness. This is what you can't fake. And this is what can't be outsourced to AI. This is what can't be copied from anyone else. You have no competition when you embody embody your highest, most successful self because nobody is you. Nobody has your unique set of experience and perspective, the way you view things, right? Nobody is you. This is how you stand out, but you have to own it. Many times we are taught to like fit ourselves into something else, right? And we change it and all of that. And it's important to tailor, but it's also important to make sure that we're showing up and we're owning what makes us different. That's what makes us more powerful and allows us to attract roles that we're not only going to be successful at, but we're going to be happy at. If you have to change who you are to land the job, you're not going to like that job because I can tell you it takes a lot of energy to pretend to be someone and to have a mask at work. And if anyone has done that before, you know what I mean. It's exhausting. I would rather you put that energy towards your work or to the rest of your life. Um, and so this is what helps you land the job and become unstoppable, not just in career, but in every other part of life, right? And this is the stuff that it's harder to teach in a five-step thing because it's so personal, but this is the work we do in Job Joy. And when you shift this mindset and identity, you show up as your next level self, right? Some of you might have come to my next level leadership class last month, or no, that was the beginning of this month. We did two classes this month, right? And it's showing up as that next level self where it becomes inevitable that other people will see it too. And the reason I put this in a circle, I was thinking, do I want to do a ladder? Do I want to do a pyramid? The reason I put it in a circle is that each piece leads into the other. So we need to get clarity. We need to have the positioning. You need to have a consistent job search plan, right? You need to be visible, command the room. You need to work on who you are and how you show up. But as you're out there taking action, you're learning, you're getting feedback, right? So you're seeing, does my positioning, does my story, how is it landing with employers, right? Is my routine working? How do I need to tweak it to make it even more effective? How do I feel about how I'm showing up? Is there any work I need to do there? And so you're refining it, you're getting more clarity and you're getting better. And so they naturally go in a circle, they feed each other. So you get better and better and more targeted until you land that job. So I hope you guys like my new framework and that is helpful for you. Let's see, Phil says, don't forget boss fit. Yeah, of course, of course. And that goes to me, that goes with culture, but absolutely. Let's see. Cynthia, my last corporate role when they called me before they even posted it. Yeah, right. I know there's a lot of drama. Some people say there's not really a hidden market, and some people think that coaches talk about the hidden market in order to sell something. Guys, the hidden market just means that jobs are accounted for before they're posted. And I'm telling you, this is not as a career coach. This is as a professional who's been in corporate. Those are facts. Cynthia gave an example. My last job, the career change that I made, they went through the whole process. I met them in January. I interviewed, we had some networking things back and forth. I interviewed in April. Then they said to me, they called me, and they said, we're going to give you the offer. We're about to post the job. We need you to apply for it. You already have the offer, but we just need to do this legally. Okay? That's what I mean when we say the hidden market and the power of networking. I told you about Rebecca. She landed a job that didn't exist, right? Through her networking, they created a job for her. The higher up you go, the even more true this is. When you are at, director and above, especially VP and above, those jobs are not coming, they're not choosing someone from Indeed. Okay, guys? At your level, it's not coming through that, right? If you have very specialized experience, right? Maybe you'll get a lead from, a LinkedIn easy apply, but most likely, probably I would say 90% of jobs, they're going to come through a connection, okay? So I'm really glad you brought that up, Cynthia. Okay, let's see. Rob says fantastic information, very helpful. Okay, beautiful. I'm so glad. So what I want to be clear about is most job searches that you're seeing out there, they're built on chasing. We build yours on magnetism. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for my clients. Okay. And so I'm going to take a couple minutes. We'll talk about job joy, and then we're going to go into some open Q&A. So if you have questions, definitely write them down. But if today's class sparks something in you, if you're done with the trial and error, whether you've been doing the DIY or you want to start your job search from a really powerful place, you don't want to waste time, you want the full roadmap, the accountability, the personalized support throughout the whole process to land the role you actually want, that's aligned, that pays well, that's fulfilling, then I want to invite you to find your job joy. This is my signature job search program. I've been running this for 7 years now, maybe more. Hundreds of clients have gone through it. Has a nine out of 10 clients rate it a 9 out of 10. 90% of clients rated a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And I'll share, like I said, just a little bit about it for those of you who don't know. But what it includes is, first of all, you get in a membership site a complete, comprehensive, on-demand job search program where we talk about every single part of the job search process. I've got different sections from clarity to building your personal brand to, of course, your assets to overcoming things that come up like imposter syndrome and confidence to negotiating to networking to choosing between jobs, even to getting off on the right foot in your new role. So, literally, every tactical thing you could think about in job search, it's covered in this. There's videos, audios, MP3s if you want to listen on the go. There's even an app, okay? So that is like the essential foundation. In addition to that, which just is the difference between just reading a book or taking a course on your own, you have personalized coaching. So you have 6 months of coaching, plus right now, given everything going on, I'm bonusing everyone 3 additional months. But you have 6 months of that coaching, questions, feedback, support, even literally, yes, we'll look at resumes and LinkedIn profiles, but the deeper stuff, right? The embodiment stuff we're talking about today. We have 3 live calls every month. They're on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. I do that on purpose because I know if you have a job, you're exhausted at the end of the day. You're less likely to show up. So we do that at lunchtime on Thursdays. They're recorded. So if you can't come to one, that's okay. And then we have a private Facebook group where you can ask questions 24/7. So you're never waiting for a call to get your questions answered. In addition, you get 6 private 1 hour one-on-one sessions with me. So we can go deeper, right? This is a great time to work on the inner work, so we're not rushed. I'm in the private Facebook group daily. So all this to say, you have full support the entire path. This way, you can stop asking all your friends because they all have a different opinion, and they're not actually in the job market, and they're probably tired of hearing it, by the way. I will never get tired of hearing it. And then, as always, you know me, I'd love to do some bonuses. So, for those of you who are seriously thinking about it, for the next week, so through next Friday, June 6th, I'm offering $500 off any plan. You can get started for $465. Okay. So $500 off any plan. You will also get, I recently did an activation meditation for your most successful job search. So you will get that as a bonus in order to really stay aligned. I'm also going to give you the networking challenge. This is 5 days that takes you through how to network, how to track in person, online, how to talk about yourself. That's normally sold for $249. I'm also going to give you the LinkedIn challenge. I'm giving you the networking challenge and the LinkedIn challenge as a bonus because that's tied to visibility, right? I want you to have the tactics because once you have the foundation of the tactics, then you can get into the embodiment and be even more confident about it. And then I was also thinking with, again, everything going on, I did a recession proof your career series. I invited experts, I interviewed experts, everything from HR, recruiting, mindset, somatics. I talked to a health coach, right? So I interviewed a bunch of experts. So you're not just learning from me, but you get a bunch of tips on how to recession proof your career and your life. So that's over $1,000 in bonuses when you sign up over the next week. And then, of course, I'd love to do a fast action bonus. So for those of you who you already know this is what you want, maybe you've been following me for a while, you know you need and want, and that this is the choice that next level you would make, right? If that is you, if you step in this weekend by Sunday, I'm going to gift you a full month of executive coaching to use when you land your new job. So that means when you land your new job, it's you and me for a month. You get 2 sessions a month and unlimited private email and Boxer access. This would normally be $1,500 a month. So that is a bonus to make sure that not only do you land the right job for you, but that you're super successful with it. So, if you're interested to fast track the search, to have the support, if you have questions, I would say let's talk. I want to make sure that, it is a fit on both sides. And so I will put a link to my calendar in the comments, and you can go ahead and book a call there. This is no pressure. I need it to be a fit for both of us. Selfishly, I want you to be successful. So I want to make sure that we need to keep that 90% approval rating. So I want to make sure that this is a right fit for both of us and that it's also the right time. So if you're interested, schedule a call. I have openings as early as Tuesday. If you want to take advantage of the weekend special, the fast track bonus, then just email me with your phone number and we'll hop on the phone this weekend or even today. Okay. Let's see. So, all of this to say, whatever you decide, I'm so glad you joined today. And I'm really hope that this planted the seed, gave you some new ideas beyond like the typical, job search advice that is out there. I want you to know you're doing powerful work just by showing up for yourself, right? Just by spending some of your Friday afternoon in this way. So, I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. If it makes sense for you, I would love to work with you and support you in the job search. And now I want to take some time for Q&A. And look, we did this in 62 minutes. How good is that? I'm normally long-winded, so I was trying really hard to get it in the 60 minutes today. So I've got about 15, 20 minutes for questions. So you can ask, of course, you can ask anything about the program. You can ask anything about the content we talked about, even things about job search that maybe we didn't talk about today. Um, and I would say while you think of your questions, you can just type them in the chat. But if you don't have any questions, tell me what is your number one takeaway from our class today? Sharing the takeaway, it's going to help you cement it in your brain so that it was actually worth showing up. And you might see someone else's takeaway that reminds you. So, number one takeaway. Keith, what was the last step in your wheel? That is embodying your most successful self, your highest self, your most successful self. So that is the inner work. That is the mindset. That is the embodiment. That is the showing up as the person who already has the job, showing up as the person who deserves to be in the room. Okay, Debbie, act as if you already have the role. Yeah. And we need to do it in a way where it doesn't feel like we're acting. It might feel a little out of our comfort zone, right? So, a good example of that is if somebody was very overweight, right? If they went and they looked in the mirror and they said, I am thin, that would probably not be in resonance, right? And so we need to pick something that, even if it feels like a stretch, it still feels true. So, in that very simple example, they might say, I'm getting healthier every day, or I'm making healthier choices, right? And so it's not acting if it doesn't align with what we believe, but it's stretching, right? And it's choosing to act from that place of worthiness, but not that it feels so out of reach. Does that make sense? It's like a little bit of a nuance here. Um, but yes, we need to embody the most successful version. Okay, ruthless refinement. Yes, Vicky, and ruthless honesty with yourself. When I say ruthless, right, we're doing it with compassion, we're doing it with love. Beating yourself up never works. I've tried that. I've tried that for several decades. It doesn't work. Okay. And so we're doing this with a compassion and curiosity, right? And realizing we're human. We all do this. And, right, in order to overcome it, right, we need to look at it, right? Let it give us clarity about who we are and what we want versus it being an excuse to make us wrong, right? Okay, let's see. Lorraine, go after what you really want and feel confident about it. Yes. Cynthia, my favorite Kristen quote from the past classes, but still relevant. Relationships are more important than resumes. Amen. It's so true. Guys, yes, I want you to have the tailored resume. And updating your resume helps you build confidence. Okay. But the truth is, when you are embodying the version of you who has the job, when you are owning your strengths, when you are showing up as your real self in connection with someone, that's what sells you them on the job. The resume becomes a check the box thing where they go, oh, yeah, can you send me your resume? HR needs to file it or something. And it's so true. And it's more true the higher up you go. Okay, I love that. Thank you, Cynthia. Let's see. We need to do like a little, you know how they have like Oracle decks? We need to do a little like positive quote decks, and I can ask you guys quotes that were helpful to you. Okay, let's see. Brian, hold true to not act where you are, but where you want and deserve to be. Absolutely. So good. So good. If you don't think you deserve to be there, why would anybody else? Right? Diane, I deserve to be there. Yes, Stephen, trust my instincts. Not every role is a good fit, but the right role is out there. Absolutely. Diane, stop putting roadblocks in your own way. Embody what you want, then do the work to make it happen. Yet we're taking aligned action. Absolutely. Liz, how I might be unconsciously holding myself back because of fear and getting really clear about what I really want. So good. So good. Okay. Any questions? Anything like this is Guys, like this is free coaching time. If you have any questions, this is a time to act as the person who deserves to be here. If you have questions, this is not a time to be shy. Someone else might have the same question. Anything that is on your mind.
I don't know how to raise my hand.
Hey, Sky, unmuting is perfect.
Oh, great. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I was like trying to figure out how to raise my hand. I'm sorry, I just jumped in late. So, um, my question is, and we've emailed before. I'm a doctor
Uh-huh.
and I quit my job. I've quit medicine like 3 times. And I am transitioning into pharma.
Uh-huh.
And it's been really challenging. I have a consultant I'm working with for like the resume cover letter stuff,
Okay.
but I've never been in this position, right? Like you don't really have to interview for a job. I mean, you have to meet people, but if you have the right skills and
Yeah.
credentials and all that stuff, you get hired. It's not,
Mhm.
this is like a whole new thing for me to apply to jobs, use LinkedIn. And so I'm just wondering in terms of this course and class, like,
Yeah.
is this a good place for me to be? Have you kind of helped someone in my position before?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, the resume and cover letter and LinkedIn, like all of that is great, but that's like in my course, it's maybe 3% of the course.
Mhm.
Like it's
Okay.
important, right? But that's to Cynthia's point, that's not going to be what gets you the job. And especially if this is a new world to you, even people who have job search before, it's a new world and it's tougher, right? But especially if you didn't have to do that in the past, having a roadmap, knowing exactly what to do, having the steps, and even before you like officially start the job search, making sure you have that foundation so that you show up more confidently, you show up to the conversations, you're proud when someone looks you up, right? But how I started this was through my own career change. And
Right.
the good news is it was my career change was way more extreme than you, right? At least pharma's related to medicine, right? And so it's going to be really easy for us to, and I'm excited about crafting a story to show how your background in medicine actually positions you as a better fit than someone who's only done pharma their whole life, right? You understand the other side, right? And I don't even know all the details, but I'm already, I can't help myself, guys. If you guys worked with me before, I start, it's almost like I start imagining you and what you're going to say. But my point is, right, we'll craft that story and then you'll have the tactics of the exact steps of what to do, but we're going to refine it for you so you don't look like everyone else. Right.
Right.
And then you're consistent, you're being persistent. We always do a clarity check. I tell my clients, I don't know if they all do it. If some of them are here, you can tell me. But I recommend that they do a clarity check-in at the end of the week. You're asking yourself and sharing with me, right? How did I present myself? How did that land? What about the people I talked to? Are they the right people? Anything I need to change there? What about the jobs I'm going after? Do I need to shift that? Sometimes at the beginning of a job search, we think we know what we want, and as we learn more, right, that shifts, right? And so it's a continual refining process, like you saw in in the circle. So absolutely, this was built on pivots and changes. So for people who are saying the exact same job, it's just really supercharging you. But because it was built that way, it's going to help you stand out in a market that is oversaturated, that has a lot of competition, because that's what you need to do if you're changing careers or you're pivoting, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, we have table stakes for the asset. So absolutely, I would love to talk about it with you more if you have any questions.
Okay.
And even if you have other questions now, but to answer your question, yes, absolutely. This would.
Okay. Yeah, I sent you I sent an invite for your calendar, and then
Oh,
if
good.
time this weekend to hop on a call, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Email me your phone number and I'll text you.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank
So
you.
good. You're welcome. And of course, I recognize you. That name. Come on. Any other questions? Let's see. Diane finally read Job Joy. I'm so glad. Let's see, Keith, reaching out to companies without open positions. Yeah, and I want you to focus, Keith, on relationships. So you're not just like reaching out, right? But you're actually building relationships, right? We talk about that a lot in networking. That's in the main Find Your Job Joy course, but you'll, like I said, you'll get the bonus of the networking challenge, which is how do you talk to people in a way where you're able to add value, where you feel confident, where you don't feel needy, right? And you're able to show up in a powerful way where you know, even if you don't have a job, even if you need a job, you have value to bring to the conversation. And so then it doesn't feel like you're starting conversations with, I know there's no job posted, but will you hire me or can you connect with me, right? So there's a strategy to it and there's also an authenticity to it. And by the way, that makes the networking not so miserable. Part of the reason we hate networking and the reason it feels weird, right, is because it can feel one-sided and like you're asking someone for something when you don't have that relationship. And so the way that I teach, I'm not saying if you hate networking, you're going to turn to love it, but it will become easier. And I have had even the most introverted of introverts tell me that they did actually start to enjoy it. Okay. And the people that you connect with through networking, if you have a relationship mindset, you can be connected with them for the long term. I remember people that had these informational interviews with when I was changing careers. Later, I was able to help them. I had some of them become a client, when I was when I launched my business. I remember one person that I met at the National Retail Federation conference. He met me. We actually connected on Twitter before the conference. That was part of my personal branding, where I would talk about things. And we connected at the conference in person. I landed my job, and then my company was a client of his. He was selling something. And so he was able to come to me and say, hey, can you make a connection for me? And so all of this to say, it's not always a one for one at the time, but if you're relationship based, you're going to stay in touch and your turn will come to help them. And it might be sooner, might be later, right? It might be through a connection. It might be through sharing an event. So I want you to realize you do have value now, and there's a way to do this with integrity and care. And if you refuse to network, you're putting yourself at a severe disadvantage in this market. Okay. Let's see. Liz, I wonder how you feel about sending the hiring manager a hard copy of your resume in the mail to stand out. What do you think? Is it a good strategy? Um, it doesn't hurt, Liz. I think with everything moving so fast, certainly online is better. Like I'm thinking of had a client who sent no, it wasn't a client. It was actually, I was told this in my last job. Someone sent thank you notes through the mail. And of course, we're all told that, physical is better. But by the time they got the thank you notes, they had already chosen. So, what I would say is if you're doing paper, and if it feels fun, okay? If you're called to do it, if it feels fun, do it, but also do the online equivalent. Okay. So maybe they get the mail and that makes you stand out, right? But don't be attached to it having to work. Just kind of send it out, put some good vibes with it. And if it feels fun, do it. But I wouldn't rely on that. Um, Kind of the same thing even with business cards, right? Like if you want to have business cards, if that feels fun, but the truth is having your LinkedIn QR code is also really fun too. Okay, what other questions? Let's see. Thank you. Makes sense. You're so welcome. And guys, if you feel like this is what I mean by inspired action, if you are in the flow, you are embodying the version of you who already has a job. And you know what I mean, right? When you almost feel you're excited, you feel the energy, you feel the momentum, right? You feel it in your body, and you have an idea, like Liz just said, act on it. I'm just saying, also send, do it online, but act on it. Many times, and I do this in business all the time, I will come up with an idea or I will think of someone a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was 1 week ago, I was meditating and I was like, I'm going to do a summer special for past clients. And I just messaged a few clients that I really love and I sent that out. And I wasn't attached to if someone said yes. It was an idea I had. It came at a time when I wasn't looking for something or say I want to make more money. It was like, oh, I have this idea. There must be someone out there who needs it. Right. And so that's what I mean when I say inspired action. And so if that feels fun, do it. Right. Okay. Beautiful. What else? Any other questions? Otherwise, we can wrap it up. And I want to make sure I get all your questions answered. Thank you so much for showing up and playing full out today. This is a really good class. I could feel your energy today. So very fun. I will be sending out the replay later this afternoon. If you have any questions after class or if it was something more personal, you can, of course, send me a message. If you are interested in exploring Find Your Job Joy, book a call. Like I said, it's no pressure. I want to make sure it's a fit for both of us. And either way, like let's make sure we're connected in all the places. But either way, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up and asking questions and engaging. And I'm just sending you so much love. I'm cheering you on and I'm wishing you the best in your job search and beyond. Okay? Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.